Hello, welcome aboard the training camp kickoff edition of the Talkin Texans podcast. I am Paul Gallant. You can hear me weekdays 10 to noon on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. He is DJ Bien-Aime. You can see him sometimes on sports and also covering your Houston Tech for ESPN. DJ, it's good to be back together. Texas training camp is underway. Let's get right into it. Right now, 2 days in, as we are recording this on a Thursday afternoon, we have seen CJ Stroud and Davis Mills split all of the reps at practice. What have you been seeing out there?
Yeah, to follow what you say, yeah, like when we say splitting reps, like it's down the middle. Like, during OTAs in the spring, it was CJ would get the week, and then the following week, Davis would get the week with the ones. Now it's all right, CJ up 7 on 7. All right, when 7 on 7 is done, you go to team. Davis Mills gets those first reps for that first session of team. Then for the second session of team, then CJ goes in. Then for the third session, it's Davis. Then for the final session, yeah, that's how it is. Today they didn't do 7 on 7, so it was Davis, CJ for the four team sessions. Um, and I would say through the first couple of days, Davis has been better. Obviously, Davis is his third year. He has more experience. He understands NFL speed a little better. And believe it or not, this offense has some similarities to the offense that Pep Hamilton ran in terms of just the concepts, because Pep ran a West Coast type offense. Obviously, there's some differences, but a lot of the foundation was similar. So he kind of has a little bit more more knowledge about just what is being asked of him. Now, is it drastic? No, but I'm just saying, talking about the foundation where CJ's come from college to NFL. So Davis has been a tick better. He's been more decisive. Um, he's been a little bit more aggressive. Sometimes that aggression has gotten him in trouble. I technically, just practice on Thursday, he threw a pick to Steven Nelson. His first attempt was almost intercepted by Jimmy Ward, and then he had one batted up by Blake Cashman that could have been intercepted, but it wasn't. So he's been more aggressive for sure. CJ day one looked a little. He was better in day two, but day one was not good at all. I think he only completed one pass during team, which was to Nico Collins for a big gain. And then today, I believe throughout team, he was like 4 for 7, something in that vicinity. And there's a lot of time where he just wasn't decisive, which is normal. Like, he's a rookie. Like, I remember again covering a rookie quarterback in 2021 when the Jets had Zach Wilson, and again ran the same type of offense. There's a lot of overlap in the sense of the indecisiveness, you know. But when CJ sees it and trusts what he's seeing at the rip, you see good things happen. Like there was, I was during the first set of team where CJ Stroud connected with Tank Dell. It's kind of like a dagger concept. You had a slot, clear it out, and with a go route, and then you had Tank on the outside run like an in. And CJ threw it before Tank even came out of his break. The first one, tight coverage. Tank could have come down with it, ran again, completed. So he was obviously better today, but there's still moments where he's holding the ball, padding, doing a lot of padding, not really sure where to go. But again, it's early, it's only day two. So I would say that Davis has a slight edge, but it's not like neither one has technically separated themselves.
And how can you really separate yourself if the reps are being divvied pretty much exactly down the middle? It's good to
Yeah.
hear what you said about Davis Mills being decisive with the football and being aggressive from time to time too, because there were times where it felt like he wasn't that aggressive. There were other moments last year too, and I would just get frustrated seeing him throw passes towards the sideline. He didn't seem to have the same touch throwing to the outside that you need to have. And again, that's a tough throw to make. So,
Yeah.
how many quarterbacks are capable of making those on a regular basis? But we also saw from D'Amico Ryans, to add a little bit more intrigue, DJ, say that we are not going to have a timeline for the starting quarterback. And he jokes, well, we will have a starting quarterback by week one for Baltimore. So I'm curious as to how long we'll see this play out. All we really do is speculate at this point and wonder whether or not it would be the first and second preseason game that we could have a decision made by.
Um, just based on people that I've talked to, it's gonna happen. It's just
Right.
it's not yet, but it's gonna happen at some point throughout training camp. Probably maybe after the first or second preseason game. Um, I just don't want to linger on because CJ needs every single rep. Um, just go from Ohio State, the offense that they run to going to the NFL because we've all seen that there is a learning curve because what they do at Ohio State, there's just a stark difference from what you do in NFL based on from the receivers that you had, the competition, um, what you're asked to do on the Ryan Day. So one thing that I am interested to see, obviously, is how long this goes on because it's not like when CJ goes with the first team, right? It's 5, 6, 7 plays. Right? I'm looking at my notes, right, from right now, and oh, I gotta go. That's the other day. Like Davis Mills, right? He'll get first team reps, right? I'm looking at it right now. He'll get like about 4 reps. No. The first team sets, he got 3 reps. Two handoff to Dameon Pierce. First throw to Robert Woods, almost intercepted. Went 0 for 1. Now going second team. CJ over the middle, tank drop. Mike Bone with a nice run. And that was that, right?
Right.
Then, then again, team again. Then you have play action with Davis Mills to Eric Tomlinson, and then a few plays out. CJ comes in, hits tank, then CJ throws another pass, it gets tipped, then CJ has a check down, Dameon Pierce. That was that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're getting like 3, maybe 4 plays, then done, right? So I'm curious how long that's gonna last. 'Cause I don't know how effective that is, because really, who can truly get into a rhythm if I get like 3 reps with the first team, and then now I'm going to the second team, get a couple reps with them, and now because the receivers and tight ends, it doesn't really change that much because they're always rotating. So there'll be time you'll see John Mechie with the third string offense, so you see with the first team, or you'll see Robert Woods with the first, sometimes with the second, Noah Brown first, second. We didn't see much Nico, so I'm guessing like they'll do some precautionary stuff today. We didn't see much Nico, but my point is the team that changes the most is the offensive line. So going from the first unit where they look really good right now. Granted, no pass, but they've looked good. To the second unit, where it's obviously going to be a drop off, so where your timing is going to speed up a little bit because you feel that pressure around you. You might not have that same pressure if you're with the first team offensive line, and you can truly go through your reads at a more efficient pace. So obviously, this is not quantifiable to figure out what works better, what doesn't work better, but it's something to keep note of. Is this truly a good process to truly figure out who's going to be your guy?
You made a great point about the rhythm. And I would imagine it's difficult to establish a rhythm too when the wide receivers that you're working with are also changing on a regular basis. Because you want to learn, okay, how high do I need to throw the ball with this guy or low?
Right, right,
What's his speed? It's going to
right.
Stroud some time to figure that out. Mills has definitely an upper hand, I would imagine, with some of the wide receivers, though there has been a lot of turnover this offseason in the Texans wide receiver room.
Right.
And I guess to go to your point, DJ, where you're saying it's not really quantifiable, I guess really all we've got is the comparison with Carolina, who announced this week that Bryce Young will be their starting quarterback for this season. It's the first 2 picks of the draft, 2 teams who made those picks with those quarterbacks, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. They're doing it in totally different ways. Though it's noteworthy that Bryce Young was competing against Andy Dalton, who has been a successful quarterback in the league, where Davis Mills has had glimpses, but that's really it.
Yeah, man. As we said, we got to see how this turns out. Um, since we know that CJ is going to be the starter, I just don't. I can't fully get on board with the splitting of the reps in the fashion that it is. Now, if you want to go one day Davis, next day CJ, I'm better with that. I'm good with that.
I agree. That makes more
Yeah,
sense.
that makes more sense to me. But like the splitting of each series, it's like how is each guy going to be able to get in a rhythm? That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm with you there. Maybe there's more pressure on him, but
I don't know. Yeah, it's like, are are we trying to figure who's going to be the starting guy, or are we going to try to make it as difficult as possible to figure who should be the starting guy? If we're going to again split each reps via team, 7-on-7 CJ, then first team Davis, second team, the second team period, CJ run with the ones, then the third team period, Davis go with the one and the fourth. So like, and again, it's not like again as I said before, it's not like they're getting 6, 7, 8 reps with the ones. It's 3, 4, then out, or 5, then out. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So me personally, I prefer for them to go with the just give CJ the reins and let CJ learn, be baptized by fire. Because they're doing that in Carolina with Bryce Young. And you made a great point. Andy Dalton is more accomplished than Bryce. He's more accomplished than Davis, more accomplished than CJ. That's obvious. From a 2-time Pro Bowl, 3-time Pro Bowler, yada yada. So I probably think that Andy and Bryce isn't that much of separation. Andy's a veteran. He knows how to operate from the practice, but they understand that Bryce is their guy in the future. Their rebound only goes as far as Bryce takes them. So giving him as many reps to get ready for week one just seems like the most logical
I
thing.
agree.
You know what I'm saying? So
And I just want to rip the Band-Aid off too.
yeah.
I just want to turn the car keys over to CJ. And yeah, if they're doing it like as you said, where it's every other day, that makes a little bit of sense. Because I get what D'Amico Ryans is trying to do. He's a first year head coach. He's trying to make it seem like nobody's above anybody, but also for the guys who are still here, I imagine there's a little bit of politicking going on. But I imagine for a lot of players in the locker room, you're looking at this situation and everyone, including Davis Mills, knows what's going to eventually happen. And it does feel like the degree of delaying inevitable. And on top of that, as you mentioned, I think it's a great point about like, if you want these guys to get into a rhythm and feel like they're actually in a game, the way to do it is not by playing musical chairs every single series sequence with these two guys.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's what it feels like at times, but it's early. It's only day
Right. It's early.
two, so we'll see how long this battle goes on. I think it has some legs. I do think again, as I said on Sports Center, that I think it'll be seized by, second preseason week or game. I think it'll be seized by then, but we gotta see. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll see how long he wants to drag this out. Um, Again, I don't see that. I don't know what the inherent benefit is of dragging it out, but if you want to wait till after the first preseason game, and then go from there, that's fine by me. I have no issues with that. Just for me, I would just prefer they just one day CJ let him get all the first team reps. Next day, let Davis get all the first team reps, so they can just get that rhythm and that continuity with the starting offense.
With you on that. DJ, you've been at these practices. What else has been jumping out to you? We start with the quarterbacks just about every single time, and until CJ's the guy, and then even when CJ's the guy, we're going to be talking about him a lot this year. But has anything else really caught your eye now that we're seeing these guys at a training camp practice as opposed to minicamp OTAs?
So I think the defense has like obviously it's early and defense usually is ahead of offenses, but the defense really led by that secondary has been pretty good. Steven Nelson caught an interception today. Stingley's had good coverage. Even though he's gotten beat, it's been tight coverage. Jimmy Ward has been playing like a man with his hair on fire. Same with Jalen. You see Desmond King make a few plays or at least have good coverage. Again, today the defensive line really jumped out. There are some plays where you saw guys get into the backfield quickly. I can pinpoint Lee Collins, Gennard, Hassan. Like you were seeing plays where guys were boom. Even Jacob Martin had a play where he got in the backfield fairly quickly. You could tell that the scheme that D'Amico wants to have, where the front four is a penetrating front, they're not catching the they're just getting upfield. You can tell these guys are really embracing that and enjoying that, and being able to. It's fitting them. Now, on the offensive side, Damian Pierce has looked, obviously it's no pads, da 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 da. But Damian, you still see the vision, you still see the violent running. That's jumped out a little bit. In terms of that, obviously, when we get the pads, we'll know even more. But yeah, I think right now, another thing that stood out, the starting linebackers right now, it's Kirk, what it looks like first team, Kirksey, Denzel Perryman, and Christian Harris.
Okay.
And right now, the starting D line until Sheldon Rankins get back, it is left to right. It's right now Gennard. Yeah, left to right. So Gennard, Lopez, Malik, Hughes, or you feel it back,
Okay.
whatever way you want to do it. So that's how I've been like. So right now you have Will and CJ. They're making them both earn it. Which again, it could be a little annoying or whatever, but I'm gonna still respect it because you have the way you want to do things. That's fine. But those are some things that jumped out. So Will right now running with the twos, without getting with the ones. Um, Damian Pierce. Oh, Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz. Yeah, Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz looks like what it's supposed to look like at the position from a blocking and receiving standpoint. So I expect him. Um, I wouldn't be shocked if Dalton Schultz leads the team in receptions and
Oh,
yards this year. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Couple of things I've been reading you tweet about. Let's talk about another one of those first round picks. One of the highlights, CJ Stroud, a 30 to 40-yard pass, dropped the bucket as you described to Nico Collins with Derek Stingley in coverage. Derek Stingley, the guy that we've talked about a lot, he's in better shape. One play, we don't want to make too much out of it. Has he been working with the ones, and what are you seeing out of him at this point?
Who, Derek?
Derek, yes.
Oh yeah. No, Derek's still been good. You know what I'm saying? Derek has still been doing what he's been doing. D'Amico spoke really highly of him. Obviously, he still has things to improve on, but he looks good. He looks like in good spirits. He looks more like a professional.
Bigger.
Yeah, he's bigger. You start to see more of his personality off the field, things of that nature. He's not as like closed off and shelled off as before. He looks like he's having fun out there. So, obviously Nico got him on that play, but like he's an NFL cornerback. You're gonna get
Yeah.
beat from time to time, so it happens. So he's been a key cog in how the secondary's been looking so far. There's one play where it was day one, and what's his face? CJ was out there. Tank was his primary target. Tank went to come back. Derek ran to come back for him. So yeah, you know what I mean. So
There we go.
yeah, so talent's there. He's been doing his thing. Um, so that's kind of that.
Another guy we're hyper focusing on, former first round pick. And this was really, I think, promising news today. We're seeing that Kenyon Green was at least first in rotation at left guard in team drills on Thursday. I'm just excited to see that because, as we're going to get into in just a moment, talking about the extension that Tytus Howard got, the Texans have put a whole lot of money into this offensive line and draft capital. A large part of that on the left side is going to be Kenyon Green being a lot, I think, more on top of things than he was last year, and obviously healthier. He went through a lot. I think there's a lot of legitimate excuses for a season that was very frustrating for him at times. But I imagine for you, seeing him out there, DJ, even if it's not full bad yet, that's definitely a welcome sight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he ran with the first team. He's on the snap count, but he ran with the first team. It's that left guard. I mean, that's his position. Like as long as he's healthy, he's gonna be starter. He's gonna be a starter. It's just more about like what is his play gonna look like. Because like the back of the half him is Michael Dieter, who up until this point has struggled the majority of his career. He's basically in that guard slash center role, backup role for now. But yeah, Kenyon Green, he looked good at times. There was nothing egregious that jumped out in terms of him getting just absolutely walloped or whatnot. So it's good to see him out there. He's going to be a starter. With Kenyon Green, we're just going to wait and see once the pads come on. Not the pads, but once the games get started to really get a true assessment of what he looks like.
That's your two first picks from last year. And of course, you mentioned CJ Stroud and Billy Anderson a little bit earlier. Second round pick from last year. I think everyone's just super happy to see this. John Mechie III, towards ACL at Alabama, who beat off cancer last year. He was out there. I'm sure everyone's so pumped, his teammates especially, and himself too, to see him. What's he looking like out there?
So yeah, no, he looks smooth. He's blended in with the rest of the receiver group. And he looks healthy, looks quick. After practice today, he was catching a bunch of passes. For the jug machine or having Coach throw it to him. So he's put in extra work. He was one of the last guys to leave. He was actually the last guy to actually leave the field in terms of football activity. Him and another receiver named Johnny. Um, I think they're 6th-round pick from last year out of Oregon.
Gotcha.
But yeah, like they were obviously Johnny was on the jug machine and Mitch was on the field. Did some jugs, but also was on the field, things of that nature, just catching more passes. So it's good to see him out there. Obviously, he's an inspiration to everybody on the team and obviously the coaching staff to just see him back out there. I know obviously he's happy to be back. And the hope is he can contribute to this pass attack because they're gonna need him. Like there isn't a receiver that isn't gonna be needed, right? Because you're gonna need Nico to step up, you're gonna need Robert Woods to step up, you're gonna need Tank to step up, you're gonna need Noah Brown to step up, you're gonna need Mechie to step up. Because again, since none of them are at this point, um, outside of Robert Woods, Robert's established. We just don't know how much he has left in the tank. Outside of him, everybody else, they have quote unquote something to prove in the sense of Nico wants to prove that he can be number one, number two type wide receiver. Mechie wants to prove he belongs to the NFL. Same with Tank. Noah Brown obviously was on 1-year deal. He wants to parlay that into something else. So yeah, that's how things look right now. With Mechie. Mechie's been rotating with the ones, twos, and threes, just getting reps. So, obviously you can't expect too much out of him in year one, but it's all positive signs right now based on what we've seen from a movement standpoint.
Well, that's good to hear about. And the receiver you're talking about, Johnny Johnson. What a name, Johnny Johnson.
Yeah.
That's a name that I want. Speaking of Johns, also I would imagine a welcome sight to see another ex-Houston Texan back in the building. John Joseph got the Houston Texans coaching staff, and DJ. I first down the Texans just signed him away from the Bengals in 2011 and 2012. You couldn't find a back that's tougher than him. I can't even count the amount of injuries that it seemed like he was playing through. Always a really good player. And I do think it's really interesting to see the amount of guys who used to play for the Houston Texans not that long ago who are back in the building as a part of this D'Amico Ryan's regime.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think can't nobody teach a defensive back how to play defensive back than a defensive back. But
Right.
like no one can teach it better. Like the majority of really good DB coaches play the position at one point or not. There's just a lot of intricacies that go into the position that you feel that can't really be seen on film that you can teach. And having Jonathan Joseph, who was a very good player in his NFL career, back in the building, teaching guys like Derek, teaching guys like Steve, teaching guys like Shaquille Griffin, teaching guys like Jalen Petrie, Tyree Thomas, Desmond King. That's a bonus. That's a welcome sight. Just to have a guy like that in the building who's obviously played here, knows what it's like when the team is really good, knows when the defense is really good, knows what the Texans being good does for the city, things of that nature. It's good to have guys like that around to help develop a team that has a lot of promise. Like the second that is a lot of promise. Like when I mean a lot, I mean a lot. Like I don't hype things up or whatever. Like I kind of see call out, see, and that secondary has all the ingredients you need from players to coaching. So
Hopefully, they'll be able to help out D'Amico Ryans in his first year. He also at least said early in training camp that he plans on calling defensive plays early. I only have one real hesitation with that, DJ. It's that you're a young coach. I I want you to feel comfortable delegating, and maybe that's something that he will feel comfortable delegating as the season progresses, as he gets a stronger relationship with Matt Burke, maybe working relationship, at least from a head coach and defensive coordinator perspective. But that was noteworthy. I don't think it's a huge deal. I just think it's a lot to put on your own plate when you're a first year head coach.
yeah, I mean, because when you're the DC, you go from you just calling plays, but now you become a head coach. You sometimes got to at least call a type of play you want on offense, right? And you don't say like, "Oh, run the ball or run this particular run action, but like let's say like 32, and you're like, nah, let's run the ball right here. Give me your best run play or whatever, or clock management. Like, okay, when do I use my timeouts during this 2 minute drill, or when do I use my timeouts prior to the 2 minute drill, or and then you have to add that into now I gotta call plays. You gotta go from all right, making sure when the special teams are, do we have the correct amount? Da, 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 da. Like 'cause everything falls on your plate, right? Because if there's a team is not disciplined when it comes to penalties, who do we look at? The head coach. If a team is having pre-snap penalties, things of that nature, who we look to the head coach. No matter what, like we're always gonna everything. The book always starts and stops with the head coach when it comes to those technical logistics that happen on game day, from clock management to play calling to how many times did we ask Lovie Smith about running the ball on in a what Rex Burkhead, or running the ball on fourth down, 4th and 2 at the goal line against with Jeff Driscoll with on the option against the Cowboys to basically lose the game, right? Because they got stopped and then they went down there and they
Yeah.
scored and they won that game. So it's things like that that you have to like. You're going to be accountable for all of it, right? So yeah, you're right. That is a lot to put on your plate. So we'll see how it goes early on. I think another reason why they went with the Miko calling the plays is Matt Burke and D'Amico don't necessarily have the same philosophy, right? Like it's from a schematic standpoint. Because what's his face? Mac Burke, I believe he came from Arizona, and I believe he's a D-line coach, and I believe I could be wrong, but I believe they ran a 3-4 under Vance Joseph. I could be wrong, but I think they ran a 4-3. But Matt Burke does have experience with Robert Saleh because I think he was like he was in some type of management role over there, but he wasn't
2021 with the Jets, he was game management, and as you mentioned, defensive line coach with the Cardinals last season.
exactly. So yeah, some familiarity with the Saleh D'Amico scheme. But when he was a head coach, he ran something. I mean, he was defensive coordinator for the Dolphins, I believe, in 2017, 2018, one of those two.
Correct.
He he obviously had a 4-man front, but I think he might have ran like a wide 9 at that time. So like they have different philosophies, right? So I understand why he's going with like let me call plays early on. Because Matt is having to also learn D'Amico's scheme too. You know what I'm saying? So obviously it probably isn't that much for him to learn because Matt's been around and seen all kinds of stuff. So it probably isn't that much to learn. But still gotta learn something. It's like when a person from South Florida goes to New York and has to learn their lingo. You know what I'm saying? Or someone from New York has to go to Miami and learn the Miami lingo, right? Y'all both speak English, but there's some slang that come in there that you may or may not be used to. So,
Oh, jabroni, I'm walking here. Yeah. Deal with a lot of
exactly,
that.
exactly.
Tytus Howard got a big deal earlier this week. We've talked a lot about training camp to this point. I do think it's really interesting, DJ, to take a look at this offensive line group. I know you're very high on the secondary. I am as well. But man, they've spent a lot of money on this offensive line if you count the second round pick that they used to draft Drew Scruggs at Penn State in this past year's draft. Last year's draft, they take Kenyon Green first in the first round. And then take a look at the three extensions that they have given out and add the total money that theoretically could be earned, generally never actually all get earned, between Larry Tunsil, Tytus Howard's 3-year, $56 million contract with 36.5 guarantee, and Shaq Mason. It's $167 million. That is a
Yeah,
lot of money invested into the protection of CJ Stroud. I love it. Hopefully they will do that billing because it's pretty high when it comes to just amount of salary cap space that's being dedicated to offensive linemen. I imagine our deal did maybe free up a little bit of space in the short term, but man, they're spending a lot of money on that offensive line. It's good, but again, it has to actually work out. It's one of those purchases that, like, yeah, you're paying for future performance, and you're hoping you're getting it from those three in particular because they've done it before, but also the young guys too, sandwiched in between them.
yeah. I mean, they've spent over $100 million in just guarantees.
Yeah,
Like you mentioned, it's 167. They're all 3-year deals, and it, the 167 just in total. But there's over 100 million
it's
guaranteed for the
crazy.
offensive line. That's a lot. So they're going to have to earn their money. Granted, I believe they all deserved it. Tytus was very good last year. Obviously, Tunsil was voted by ESPN as the second best tackle in all of football. Shaq Mason has had flashes, had seasons of very good play. So it was good. It's always good, especially with a quarterback like CJ Stroud who isn't necessarily. At least we didn't see on film. It could show up in NFL because we saw with Justin Fields, right, where he wasn't much of a runner. Um, at Ohio State, you saw flashes, but that wasn't really his bag. And now you saw in his second year in NFL, he rushed for over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, he's a tank. He's Cam Newton.
Right, right, right. CJ Grant, we didn't see much on film in terms of just consistent being able to play within a disarray of offensive linemen. Granted, and again, you don't want your quarterback living on under that. So it's good for a guy like him, who's basically for the most part a pocket guy, who has some athleticism, to at least give him that strong, fortified offensive line to protect him, play after play, snap after snap. So he can have the see. That's one thing that I forgot to mention with CJ Stroud holding the ball. Yeah, he's holding the ball a little bit longer than you would like, but the pocket still looks clean because he has
That's
a good
good.
left tackle, he has a good right tackle, it's a good right guard. You know what I'm saying? So that's that's a positive. It's over 100 million of guarantees because all about the guaranteed money,
Yep.
right? That's money that's going to get to them no matter what. So
They're spending. They should be spending. Steven Nelson probably thinks they should be spending on him. Steven Nelson has posted some interesting tweets. He had that, of course, infamous Instagram story post where he posted a picture of a vest with the caption of "Clown Freak," if I'm not mistaken. It's
yep,
probably in reference
clown
to Nick
freak.
Casario. Nick Casario was actually asked about it at his press conference before training camp practice on Wednesday. He actually made a joke about it. I thought he took it pretty well. Steven Nelson, for his part, is also at Texans training camp. Hopefully, things will be resolved. He did play very well for the team last year. I'm very curious to see what happens. I do know he had an interception of Davis Mills.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Steven, you know what you're gonna get, a quality starter. And obviously he was the best corner last year because he obviously played 16 out of 17 games. I think led the cornerback position, and I don't actually think they don't. I don't actually think the cornerback spot had that many interceptions actually, but that's not here nor there. But yeah, he played very well last year, and you can expect that. I think that's another reason why I'm very high on the secondary is because when you have a guy, obviously you have the young talent, but you have veterans that have seen it all, so he can bestow his wisdom onto the rest of the group, especially at the cornerback spot. And obviously, he has a solid relationship with Derek, so he can obviously take him under his wing and just teach him how he should be, how he should play the position. Because again, he's played in multiple schemes, seen all kinds of quarterbacks, seen it all. Obviously, he played with Mahomes, played with Ben, played against it, practiced against. I think he might have practiced against Antonio Brown. I have to double check that. He might have, but practiced against Tyreek Hill. So he's seen all kinds of wide receivers. He played against all of them. So yeah, no, this is good. He's a good player, and it's good that they have him. And you can tell they value him because when he was tripping on social media, they didn't cut him. So that you know how like they want to keep him around.
That is definitely a good sign. Now, he might be going up against DeAndre Hopkins at some point this year, something that happened when we were about last week. Titans signed him to a 2-year, $25.5 million deal. 10.98 million of it is guaranteed for a 31-year-old DeAndre Hopkins. Really stuck to see that happen within a week, DJ, of the Tennessee Titans also announcing that they will be rocking the beautiful Houston Oilers throwback uniforms. It's like another gut punch. It sucks that both Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins will have played for the team that left now. It just sucks. I don't know what Hopkins is going to do this coming season. I'm really curious. Where do you think he stands among receivers these days? Because it's never been he's never been a guy that's been about speed. He's been a guy that is incredible with his body control, really good in traffic and route running, and obviously has gigantic hands. I'm curious as to what we will see out of him in Tennessee Because honestly, I was expecting him to sign with a team like Buffalo or Kansas City, who need a wide receiver, like a true contender. He ends up on a Tennessee team that I think has a chance to be the worst in the division this year.
Oh, I don't think they have. They're not gonna be the worst team in the division. That's crazy.
Why is it crazy? I hear Ryan Tannehill, he's trending in the wrong direction. It's
Is
all
he?
about whether or not they're going to be able to get a lot out of Derrick Henry. And is
Is
Derrick Henry still the
it?
same guy?
Why do we think Ryan Tannehill's trending? Like, what are we seeing that makes us think he's trending in the wrong direction?
The
He's the
second
same
half of
guy
last
he's been
year.
for. He just didn't he just didn't finish the season. Like they were gonna win a division if he stayed healthy. The defense was still pretty good. They were top 12 in points allowed per game last season. The secondary has some issues, but they're gonna get Landry back coming off the edge who tore his ACL last season. They're gonna get him back. That should bolster the pass rush as long as you have Jeffrey Simmons. Um, you obviously have Bird in the secondary. I like Fulton at corner. The O line has some question marks, but it's more of an unknown versus going to be bad. They have an emerging tight end and a young tight end. They still have again Tannehill has the least amount of wins he's ever had when he started every season. The majority of the season is 6. The least amount of wins he's ever had in his entire career is 6, which is 2015 when the Dolphins went 6-10. So now you're adding Hop to that situation where you have Derrick Henry who's gonna garner a lot of attention. So Hop's gonna get a lot of one-on-ones. You have Traylon Burks who they drafted in the first round. I ain't too high on Traylon as a one, but as a two, as the guy that you can get him the ball in space and make things happen because he's a playmaker. You have him on the outside, and then is really good when he has a run game. So the notion that they're gonna be bad I thought they were going to be very good because they didn't have anyone to throw to. Now they have a legitimate wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, who is based off of last year was still very good. Like he had almost 1,000 yards, and only played like 10 games, like 707 some yards or whatever, and he played in like 10 games, 10 or 11 games. He was like top 10 in yards per game average, some of those numbers. He's still. I know people like the jokes of like, oh, Randy Moss went there, and Andre Johnson went there, and Julio went there. The only guy that was close to age in with Hop was Julio, and Julio wasn't affected that year because he just stayed hurt the majority of that year. Andre got there at age 35. I think Randy got there at age 34. They were all basically on the way out, because Andre retired the next year, Randy retired next year. I doubt Hop is going to retire next year, so I think Hop still has a lot in the tank. So when I saw that move, I thought, well. The division got a lot harder, and I'm gonna have to readjust my win totals for the Texans. And Titans might win that. Titans might win that division.
Okay, so you're big into them. I think they're a cheap organization and that they're stripping parts and that it's going down. Why do I feel that? Is it because of a little bias? Perhaps it might be, but no Arthur Smith, Ryan Tannehill. I don't take him seriously, so that's where I'm at, though. TJ.
Yeah, I mean, I know what Tannehill is. So if you give Tannehill a run game, you give Tannehill some decent weapons, you give him a good defense, you're gonna win some games. And Mike Vrabel's the head coach, who the least amount of games he's ever won in the season is 7. He has an 11 on his resume. He has 12. He has a 9-7. He has a AFC Championship appearance where they beat Brady and the Patriots, and they took down Lamar Jackson and the Ravens when Lamar won MVP, and they are running roughshod on everybody. So
I remember that team. They also had Arthur Smith.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, that's true. That's true. But I
That
think
was my big thing as to why Tannehill had the big jump. His numbers did go down a little bit. He does get a little bit too much flack as a quarterback.
right.
They're at this weird crossroad, DJ. I feel like they still believe they can contend. It's an AFC South division that is definitely up for grabs. So I could easily have egg on my face for this one. But
Yeah, I mean,
some of the moves that they've made feel like the moves that are made by a team that realize they're moving in another direction. And I would specifically point to the A.J. Brown trade. And maybe that's the reason that they got rid of John Robinson last year. But that to me, there are aging pieces that are very, very good. And a couple of years ago, obviously led them on the way to that really good season that they had. And of course, the playoff run that they had the year before. But something's missing. Maybe it's my brain.
I think it's just your bias. Yeah, I think it's just your bias. Yeah, I think this will be a good club. I just got to see what the O line looks like before I can declare like because it's between them or the Jags to win the division in my eyes. So I just have to see what the O line looks like because I think the Jags D line on paper should be able to if their O line the Titan O line isn't good, the Jags D line should be able to have their way. But again, like everybody's just jumping on the Jaguars bandwagon. I think there's a lot of internal bias of we believe in Trevor, so this is year 3, so we're expecting that jump. Calvin Ridley's coming back, so they should be like a 12, 13 win team. And all I'm saying is hold your horses.
I'm on the same
Hold
page
your
with you
horses.
on that.
Yeah.
I think we're
Yeah.
both in agreement about the Jaguars.
Yeah. Like I think the Jaguars can win a division. I think they can still make the playoffs, but it's not as a gimme as everybody is ready to declare. Cause they still got to play the Chiefs this year. They always split. They always split with the Texans. They got to play at the Bills. They got to play at the Saints. They got to play the Niners. They got to play the Steelers. They got to play the Bengals. They got to play the Browns. They got to play the Ravens. Like, everybody hold your horses on the Jags. Let's hold our horses. They still got to play some really, really. They got a first place schedule now. So again, Bills, Chiefs. They always struggle with the Texans, so I'm gonna already mark that down as a split. The Saints, Steelers, Niners. Tennessee's gonna be good. I think the Bengals, who are always good. The Browns, who should be at the Browns late in December, so it's gonna be December 10th, so it's gonna be cold. Florida team going up to the cold. We know how sometimes that can go. Ravens, yeah, they beat the Ravens last year, but that took the Ravens having to fold. So, and then they finished the season at Tennessee January 7th. And if I can recall, around that time last year, it was so cold. Oh my God. It was so cold. Flights were getting canceled.
I can tell you're from Florida right here.
It was so cold, man. That's what I'm saying. So all I'm saying is everybody, what I'm saying? Everybody want to jump on that bandwagon. Everybody pump the brakes. I'm just saying.
I'm with you on that, DJ. Don't pump the brakes, though, for the road. This is a terrible transition to the start of the regular season. DJ's even nodding his head. I know that was bad. Listen, the broadcast professionals, sometimes we swing and sometimes we miss. We are less though than 6 weeks away from the start of the NFL regular season, and DJ Bien-Aime has you covered all things Houston Texans from training camp. You can hear my shoot from the hip observations as well on the Paul Gallant Show. DJ, thanks for your time. We'll be back at it next week with another episode of Talkin' Texans. Peace.